Are you thinking about buying your very first home to take your success to the next level? I'm going to show you whether you should take that step or not in today's episode of Black Men's Career. Hey, it's Uzziah, your success consultant, and in today's video, I'm going to help you decide if you should buy a home. So let's first address the phenomenon that is home ownership. Having a home is a big part of the American dream that says in order for you to be successful, you got to be a homeowner. Society has taught us that if you are an adult and you got a job, a car, and a spouse, the only thing that you're missing now is that white picket fence. So the only logical step is to go ahead and buy a house, whether you need it or not. While having a home isn't a bad thing, there's so many people around the world that bought into this narrative prematurely. I mean, look at the housing crash back in the early 2000s. The truth is, there were so many banks that were selling homes to people knowing that they couldn't afford the mortgage. They were so busy selling hopes and dreams to people on fitting this American dream of having a house that they forgot to ask the number one most important question. Should you have a house in the first place? If you're interested in building an empire, here are a few things that you should take into consideration. Number one, a home is not an asset. A home is a liability. I'm going to say that again. A home is not an asset. A home is a liability. If you've ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Rob Kiyosaki, he told you that a home is not an asset. In other words, if you're trying to really increase your net worth, if you're trying to get to that $1 million mark or wherever it is that in your mind represents financial success, having a home does not increase your net worth because a mortgage is a liability. A liability is something that you owe. You owe money on a mortgage. So when you buy a home, when you take out that mortgage, you're going ahead and adding that to your debt, right? If you have a mortgage that's $150,000, that means that now you're $150,000 in the red. It's not making you any richer. It's not making you any money because you don't have any tenants or you're not using it as a landlord. It's just a place to stay. And so a home is not an asset. A home is a liability. You know, being a homeowner is very expensive. Oftentimes you see your friends and your family on Facebook showing you when they're at the title office signing away for the home, holding the key in their hand saying, wow, look at me, I got my first house, ha ha ha, joke's on you. But what they never tell you is having a home is a very, very expensive process. Because guess what? Whenever something breaks, you got to pay for it. A lot of times you don't expect it. If there's renovation costs, any hidden fees, private mortgage insurance, all of the things that goes along with a home, there's so many different small, subtle fees that adds up every single month. You got more money coming out at the end of the week than you imagine. So just remember, if you're going to be a homeowner, you gotta have the money. Which leads me to my second point. If you're already in debt, how will having a mortgage add on to it? Maybe you already have credit cards. Maybe you already have student loans. Maybe you already have debt from your car note. If that's true, you might already be $100,000 to $200,000 already in the hole between those three. So if you add a mortgage onto the equation, before you know it, you're well over $250,000 in debt with no assets to balance that out. You don't have, all these businesses and stocks and all of these other things to be able to offset this high amount of debt, but you're so far into the red, you don't know when you're going to get into the black. If you are already in debt, how will having a mortgage add on to it? I always recommend, before you get on your next frontier and you take the next big thing on, in this case, we're talking about buying a home. Maybe it's a lifelong dream. It's a part of you having a family. I get it. You want it to be a wise decision and not something that you're going to regret. You don't want to look back at your life and regret this decision for years to come, because it is going to be expensive. So if you're going to get a home, I advise you to get out of debt. Get as much out of debt as you can, so that way you can focus on the home when it's time for you to go ahead and get a home. Now that leads me to my third point. If you really want a home, you should ask yourself whether it makes more sense to buy a home or rent a home. I'm going to give you an example. So right now, in terms of my living arrangements, when I made the decision to pay off my $95,000 in debt, the next thing that I was thinking about was, oh man, now I'm going to get out of this apartment and I'm going to get myself a property. And fortunately, I was able to come across some really good mentors and just reading some really good books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all these other different learnings that showed me, well, if I'm going to get a home, shouldn't I make money off of it? If I'm going to take out a mortgage, shouldn't I have some type of rent coming in? So that way it doesn't become a liability, it becomes an investment. So sure enough, that's how I went about buying my very first real estate property in North Austin. I bought myself a nice duplex. It was a really nice size. And although I took on a mortgage, I also had a tenant that was paying every single month. So if you're going to take out a mortgage, turn it into a business plan. Don't just take out a mortgage and you're not making any money back from it, because then you're just putting yourself in debt. You're putting yourself deeper in the hole with no way to get yourself out. If you don't have any income to offset those expenses, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So in your case, should you buy a home or should you rent a home? You know, there's a lot of research going on right now that just simply says, if you're gonna go ahead and buy somewhere, just go ahead and rent that out. So that way it turns into a moneymaker for you. And when it comes to you just laying your head somewhere, in a lot of cases, it's best for you to just rent that location. Because like I said, think about the closing costs that goes into you buying a home, the mortgage cost that goes into you buying a home, the renovation cost that goes into you buying a home, as well as a lot of the extra repairs that you never accounted for in the first place. When I bought my very first investment property, it cost me tens of thousands of dollars in hidden costs, renovation costs, repair costs that I wasn't fully expecting in order for me to really enjoy that property. Still making a lot of different payments now. It is a process. It's a never-ending process. So I want you to make a wise decision, and that's the reason why I'm giving you this free gift on building your empire. I know that buying a home is important to you. You want to focus on timing when you are making your decisions. You wanted to do everything in its right place. So go ahead, download the Empire Builder. It's going to show you exactly when you should get out of debt, when you should get your second stream of income, when you should focus on actually getting a property, and how, if it's going to make money for you or not. It's going to give you all of the tools that you really need to really build your empire. Because like I said before, the big part of the reason why people buy a home in the first place is because they feel like it's going to make them successful. But if you're looking at the dollars and you're looking on paper, it's only putting you that much further into debt. So if you're serious about actually doing it the right way, building wealth for generations at a time, go ahead and download the Empire. Leave me a comment below and let me know when you're going to buy a home. If you're going to buy a home, maybe after watching this video, you've come to the realization that you were a bit too hasty when it came to being a first-time homeowner. You realize that it might cost a lot of money. You might not be ready in terms of your own debts prior to this, and you want to be able to take a little bit more time to be able to get your affairs in order, learn how to build your empire properly. before you take that next step. So in the very next video, I'm going to show you how to create your vision. I'll see you there.